you all again.
And it is nice to be seen.
Indeed, for week 7, winter week of the sewing bee. And excited about this episode, and it was a good one, wasn't it?
It's partly because it's still winter out, although finally today we seem to have some sun. But yeah, the last 7 weeks could be October.
Definitely. But it was, as you say, it was an exciting episode. It was actually kicked up back into gear again. It's like, oh, this is like a sewing bee episode, like they used to be.
We got rid of Children's Week and reduce, reuse, recycle, which we know over the past series we've been a bit like meh about, and excited.
I like it.
Okay, let's go straight into it then. The pattern challenge to make, as Ting and I are so modelling, a flannel.
I didn't get the memo.
Did you not make yours, Anya? Yeah, just make sure the label's covered up.
So I had to make a flannel shirt with reference to the yoke, the collar, and the cuff. So I was excited to see this. Brushed cotton, popular, coming back into the shop, brushed cotton. Have you used it before, you two?
Not used it before. I have worn it before because it's snuggly. Generally, it's used in my pajamas.
I was going to say, I'm sure you've got a nice wincy at night.
In my dreams, Ting, in my dreams. No. I like a bit of brushed cotton, preferably brushed cotton sheets.
So I was looking forward to seeing this whole pattern challenge round. So we had some fabulous garments, didn't we?
Yes.
Well,
no, maybe not fabulous, but
the majority of them.
Well, let's go straight into that one then. Fari, for some reason...
Oh, we're going there first, are we?
We might as well, because we just commented that some of them were good, so we might as well go straight to Fari, because she didn't finish.
No.
And even
she barely had like 5 pieces of fabric sewed together.
Yeah. And maybe the viewers can let me... I don't understand why she hadn't finished.
I mean, the thing is Raf had chosen quite a big check. And I can understand, I mean, because he didn't finish, well, he struggled to finish, but I can understand because the matching was harder on that. But she had basically this, but in blue. And it was like, that wasn't that hard. Everyone else had a relatively small, even check with just 2 colours. They all managed to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and again, you kind of forgave Raf because he hadn't quite finished all these buttons on the front and a little bit of the collar. But Furry, it had no collar whatsoever. It had barely been sewn together. And it's like, what have you been doing with all of your time?
Yeah. Well, she said in it whenever she was chatting, she was like, oh, that perfectionist in me is, that was her main issue that was slowing her down. But this isn't the first time that she hasn't finished. No. That's what infuriates me. It's like, okay, we're now into, week 7, you said? And this is, like, I think, has she finished maybe 1 or 2 pattern challenges, and that's it out of the 7?
She had the issues early on, week 1 and week 2 and week 3, and then week 4. No issues, and now it sort of went back.
Yeah, so...
Just think she probably got her timings wrong and spent, as you say, spent too much time on the check. As I said about Raf had done a different yoke. He cut the fabric on the bias, so you got that diagonal look. So I think I can understand why Raf, because he certainly struggled that round, but perhaps...
Yes, and I think as well, Raf struggled to understand. I know patterns can be confusing at the best of times. English isn't his first language. So you could see he definitely struggled to understand when it came to the collar. He was really struggling to understand the pattern.
Well, he can't do it either, can you?
I'm doing I've downloaded the pattern.
I believe there was that Saturday where I walked through the door and literally had a collar thrown at my face because you couldn't do it.
There's 5 pieces, isn't there, to the collar? There's like multiple. It's not just 2 pieces. You're done.
Yeah. And it's getting the upside downs right on the stand and the shape of it. So I think Raf really struggled to get his head around it. Because pattern language is its own language all by itself.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Raf, and I will use every excuse under the sun to defend him. But it did surprise me a little bit because you know, if you go back a couple of weeks, we were moaning that they don't do any men's garments and that people like Raf had only ever made men's garments. And you just think, you must have made a shirt. I mean, I think even those rainbow jumpsuits had a bit of a collar on them.
He'd made the shirt he was wearing.
Oh, did he? Well,
yeah.
I missed that.
I wonder, because I think they used a more complex pattern, because based on what Damien and what Andrew were both saying, they have made them in the past, but they've made them a simpler way. So I think
there was, what was it, 17 pieces? I think I remember.
Pieces. It was mad.
Well,
I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where the hell are the others?
7, 8,
well,
9.
it was 4 alone for the collar. But I downloaded the free pattern for the baby romper, and I am sewing that as we speak at the shop. I have to say, and as a newbie sewer, those instructions are kind of vague, but they are also written in a way that is really hard to understand. And I'm a newbie sewer, so you look at from Raf's point of view, I can completely understand how those issues. And because what did it? Oh no, Damien said it later on. What was his words? I think it was for the.
Because he skipped a few steps, didn't he?
Yes, he said
his words where he followed 95% of the pattern.
Yeah. He's done it before. And this is where I agree with him there. If you have done it before and you know it works, and these instructions are looking a bit, where you're questioning, why would I do that? Why would you do it? You wouldn't, would you?
No. And if
but you see,
it works.
The trouble is that, you know, if we're going to be fair, we talk about the judges changing their minds, but you know what we talk about and everything. You're given a pattern and you're supposed to follow that pattern, aren't you? That's the whole idea, is it's a level playing field. And the minute you start fiddling around and thinking, well, I'll do it my own way, it's when things show up or something doesn't lay properly or something because you haven't followed the exact pattern. And it's how much do you take that into consideration? Because again, I love Raf, but they turn around. I did feel for him when he said, "Oh, you've cut it on the bias, but that's not what we asked for." I thought, "Oh, calm down, Patrick. It looks much better than any of the others."
It did look much better cut on the bias. I was like, "Oh, that's actually really nice."
So, Damien said, "I've done a few collars, so I've skipped a few steps." So he was obviously comfortable with the collar. And as I know, we know how hard the collar is because of the stand that you've got to do on top of the collar. So,
again, when it comes back to the cutting and the bias, I wonder, is it again of they wanted to see if you could pattern match your stripes and everything, you know, from the yoke straight down. So you know,
that's why I struggle, you know, because I think Raf is great. And it was just like, yeah, mate, you should have just stuck to the pattern matching.
Okay, so we had
probably would have made his life easier if he didn't go on the back. Well, you know, to an extent.
So we had Fari and Raf, who were clearly struggling in that round, and then the others seemed to be managing really well and achieving well. So let's go to Rebecca and her pink gingham.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a pink shirt, but I didn't think it worked as a.
Me neither. I have to be honest.
I don't know if it's because it's the fleecy stuff. I think if it was perhaps just a normal cotton shirt, it might be all right. It just didn't look like a tablecloth.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of did. But
it was sewn really well. You can't.
I was going to say, she had a wee gap, I think, at the top. That's the only thing I noted. She had a gap.
Her thing was not.
Yeah.
It was different lengths, so it didn't.
And she used a different button as well, didn't she? She had a smaller button at the top.
Yeah.
She was like, "Why have you used a smaller button?" She's like,
Which I don't know where she would have got that. I have smaller buttons on my collar. This one's got. This one's a posh one. It's got buttons on the collar. Yeah. So I've got a smaller one there, but the ones that go up the thing, they're normally all the same.
I think she got confused. Yeah, the button down ones are normally small.
I've got them on my sleeve.
Oh my god.
I'm dead posh, me.
Button bonanza for you. Let's go on to Andrew then. With that, I like that brown and blue check that he had.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is the last thing I'd buy is a brown shirt, but these types of shirts are those colours, and actually that works. Yeah. And I thought he did reasonably well. I think he had a problem with these buttons again, didn't he? But
yeah, well, his fabric had stretched, so his meeting was like that in the middle. So that was the only wee issue. And I think he had a bulge at the collar as well. So that was just his wee issues.
And then, of course, we had Serena, who just out of the park, wasn't it?
I wrote down practically perfect. It made me think of Mary Poppins because it was practically perfect in every way.
Not me then. It didn't make you think of me.
Well, obviously you were there too, Ting. But but yeah, really, really good. Like that was so clean. Oh, it was very well done.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So the final standings for the 6. So the final 6 we've got now: Serena first, Damien second, Andrew third, Rebecca fourth, and then notably Raf and Fari.
I mean, Serena had sewn a good shirt, but part of me was thinking, "Oh, is this Damien's week?"
Yeah,
because he had sewn a good shirt.
Yeah, his was pretty good. There was only like he didn't catch a seam somewhere, and I think that was the only thing.
Well, and his was classic lumberjack, like yours, red and black. You can't beat that, can you?
Yeah.
Oh, and we haven't talked about the burrito method.
Well, I don't know who many. I was also chatting with Carol at that moment as well, and she'd said an interesting way of doing it. Not perhaps the way she would do it. It's an interesting method, very confusing.
But it was kind of a way of bagging it out, wasn't it? Which I'd never really thought of. I never made a shirt of Ion. Why would I buy them? Yeah. But it was, I suppose it's a way of doing it so that all of those, because it needed the strength of the yoke, didn't it? Because it's a lumberjack shirt sort of thing. So I suppose it was a way of concealing all of those. But again, like you say, for someone like Raf, who may have made an ordinary shirt, that extra step in trying to understand how all that works, for not just for him, but for all of them, was probably something that took up more time than it needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Okay, but it was an enjoyable round, wasn't it? Yeah. To see so many.
The drama started to go because things started to go wrong for people, and people sort of veering off, doing their own thing, and it was interesting.
And also, we got so used to Raf being on the ball, to see him wobble. That was also
I don't know whether people will comment again, although we had a good week with the comments, and I did try to reply to my fan base. I mean, obviously, it's getting quite a chore.
You had loads, yes, with Michaela and Maury 27.
I was reading online, and somebody had commented on another blog or Facebook or whatever, and
someone else's.
No, I think it was just on the Facebook page, Sewing Bee or something.
Oh, yeah.
Someone made a comment had he made a comment at the beginning that he hadn't felt very well that week, or he was a bit, just unwell. And I thought, I missed that. But then, not to let the cat out of the bag, I was a bit late to the game last night.
Yes, we had an earful before this recording started because myself and Stuart were chatting, and we were told off for chatting in the joined group because
I was 10 minutes behind. That was the problem.
Oh, I missed that.
I missed that, and I thought I did record it because I did think I might be late home. So obviously I was. So I might go back and double check that, unless somebody can say in the comments, because you know what it's like. Even if you just got a bit of a jippy tummy, and then suddenly you're leaping around for 5 hours, you just lose your concentration a bit, don't you? Because it was a bit of an off day for him.
Yeah, he wasn't himself at all, really.
Let's go into the transformation challenge then.
Don't get me started.
To make a garment for an adult of any gender, and you are to use up to 5 scarves.
Right, I'm going to take issue with the whole challenge. Right, first of all, as a crocheter and somebody who loves wool, and the effort it goes in to make something, to see them cutting up those, which is not their fault, they're only doing as they're told. I mean, how many people would sit there and go, oh, look at those scarves, I'm going to cut them up, and then all the stitches fall apart? I mean, honestly. So there was that side of it again, which goes a bit against like the whole reuse thing from last week. Then we also didn't have equity on the scarves. Some of them were diaphanous material, and some of them were just like an ordinary men's scarf that you'd wear around your neck, and it was just like, whatever. And then I took umbrage at what they said about Damien, because, he cut a hole in made a poncho, but then he sewed it all up down the side and made it fitted. Yeah. Well, a bloody poncho just sits over you, doesn't it? And I thought, well, hang on a minute. He could have used up to 5 scarves. He chose to use 1.
Indeed.
And he turned it into a garment. He didn't turn it into a scarf.
No, and that's all they were supposed to do, a garment for an adult.
Yeah.
They didn't say an extravagant garment, did they?
Or that it had to have 5 scarves involved.
Yeah, but I think, don't kill me, but it still looked like a scarf. that you'd just sort of put over your shoulders and you'd pinned at the sides. The more it was fitted and it was lovely, it was still a scarf folded in half with a hole in it.
I'm looking at the picture now because viewers, I'll let you into a little secret. I have to have them in front of me. I'm looking at the picture now, and you can see all the others are scarves. That looks like a dress fitted to a mannequin. I mean, he muffed it up with all the flowers around the neck and everything, but yeah, okay, if you get close, it's there, but it doesn't look horrendous like some of these other ones I'm looking at.
No, I didn't think it looked like a scarf. I thought it looked like a garment. I thought it was.
And why wouldn't you choose? I mean, it's that thing we've said before, that you actually want as much material as possible. So you're not going to choose a little skinny scarf like this and try and cut it up. You're going to choose the biggest scarf and go, well, I'm going to treat it like a sheet of fabric and do something with it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I just felt, I mean, I can understand what they're saying, that they would want a bit more, but I just felt that they treated it with such derision, and it didn't deserve that much criticism.
Yeah, because sometimes I do worry that they've slightly taken against Damien because of his previous behavior, where he's just not completely, but ignored the pattern and things. And I think in their head, they're just like, you know, he's doing something again. But I for once, I slightly agree with you, Ting. I don't want to unnerve you or anything.
It's not, you won't unnerve me, you'll unnerve the viewers.
Sorry, people. I've just had a really long day. No, I'm joking.
It's the fact that he came bottom, and their critique was it still looked like scarves.
But
well,
Raph
it does, but it's still a garment.
Didn't Raph come bottom?
I thought Raph came bottom.
No, Damien came bottom.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
That's even worse then, because I thought it was Raph, because his definitely still looked like scarves.
No, Raph was
fit. I could take it back to scarves immediately.
Oh.
How disappointing. Yeah, I am slightly disappointed with that, because he didn't deserve that.
As much as Farry is getting on my last nerve, she did a good thing with this, but again, she had this diaphanous kind of material, whereas the others had like woolen scarves and like who was it who did the bow? Was it Serena or
Rebecca?
Rebecca did that. Well, it wasn't a bow, was it? I mean, whatever it was horrendous. But she had like one of those wool blanket type scarves that she turned into a skirt, which looked fine. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing for that. But it's then like, but then Farry had like these little silk things that then just laid perfectly, which they would do because they haven't got the weight behind them. Like everyone else seemed to be working with these thick
woolly
materials.
scarves.
Well, surely it's down to them to pick the scarf though. So, you know.
It is, but there clearly wasn't, you know, enough scarves for them all to have lovely diaphanous material.
No, because Andrew went for that lovely medieval look with the cross coming over.
I was actually really impressed with his. Can we take a second for Andrew's?
So many skills involved.
Yeah, he took the yarn out of that and he did the nice crisscross and he did the, like, that was a fair amount of effort that he managed to squeeze in.
Don't forget, he had his sock jumper on last week, so he's obviously quite good at working with the wool and bringing it all together, you know.
Yeah. But he did, like, in 90 minutes, though, he did that. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I was
Were there more skills involved with his compared to Farry's?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it here now, and
not that
I mean, she didn't make it like Damien's with a poncho, but it is just kind of draped around here with another one at the back, and then it was just had some darts put in, which, you know, they all know how to do darts. It's not like Farry invented darts, but you know, well, I'll get into,
Andrews, because he did
shut up before I get into trouble.
Sorry, I completely talked over you. What?
I said, I'm going to shut up before I get into trouble.
Well, those two were the best, though. Farry and Andrews. I think it was close. I would have liked Andrew to come first, but then I own a wool shop, so I'm liking the wool and how it used the scarves and the effect and the chunky wool and the yarn. But yeah, Farry first, Andrew second, Rebecca was then third, Serena with those blue drapey things.
That was quite fun. It was very simple again. It was just a lot of draping with some darts and a wrap sort of thing. But she had, you know, it was a bit different. She had the big voluminous sleeve and, you know, so she tried something different.
And then Raf and Damien, 5th and 6th. I mean,
I do wonder whether whether Raf was feeling a bit off, because that was very unlike him. It just was like, come on, mate, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really felt your heart was like, what's going on? What's going on?
I was really nervous at this point, being like, Raf, please don't go home. Please don't.
Yeah, because it was going that way, wasn't it? Really?
Oh God, yeah.
With Raf being in the bottom two. I mean, what can you do with scarves? If you were doing a transformation challenge with scarves, what would you do? What garment would you have made?
I'd have put them in a bag and taken them to the charity shop.
There was all that years ago where people were transforming scarves into like halter neck tops and halter dresses, and those, the skirts with the pointy bottoms.
Yeah, because either way, if they were long and thin, you've got to sew them all together to make some sort of fabric, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But like, I think the top two deserve the top two. I would have preferred Andrew to have the top spot, because like he did do that hand stitching and stuff as well. But
okay, so we go into the final challenge, the made to measure, with Serena coming top and Raf and Fari bottom, 5th and 6th. We then go, we have the transformation challenge where Fari then goes to the top after being last, and Raf and Damien in the bottom. So we're kind of worrying for Raf, aren't we, here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're also thinking, well, Fari's come bottom and top. Could that be? How are we feeling at this point? Or was it just Raf you were worried about, the pair of you?
I was worried about Raf, but the whole Fari thing, I was like, yeah, okay, but that was a 90-minute challenge. Whereas the pattern challenge was so unfinished. Yeah. I was like, that's surely a nail in your coffin. When you go back to the other weeks, when they've sent people home for having unfinished items and stuff like that, you're just like, that was so unfinished. Surely there is no way back. Even if you did do, the only way I thought that there was a way back from that is if her made to measure was spot on. Yeah, that might be a justification.
And got garment of the week.
That was so unfinished that it was just like, well, I don't care how well you've done on the transformation challenge. That's not really a challenge.
You were thinking Fari. What about you, Anya?
I honestly thought maybe Fari, but I was just very nervous for Raf, because I thought if he's having a bad day today, I hope he's not having a bad day the next day. I was a bit, not concerned, but it was just like, I wonder, is this Fari's week, if this is going to be her, because like she has. It'll be interesting to see the weighting they give, because we can talk about it after, but interesting.
But it wasn't. I don't think it was. It wasn't clear. It wasn't clear like, oh, someone has failed the first two stages. It's they're the ones.
It was, because it was Raf, wasn't it? That's what the worrying thing was. Raf had come either bottom or second from bottom, and it was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the made to measure. So the brief here, because the brief got me, just a little tad frustrated.
You've been doing your detective work, haven't you?
Because I got confused as I was watching it. I was like, are we creating a party dress, or are we suddenly now creating a festive dress? And someone's creating an office party because they were obviously inspired by the brief. Well, the brief was this: to create a festive winter party dress. And then Joe went to say it could be for a Christmas lunch, or it could be for a New Year's Eve party. So festive winter party dress. Off you go. Be inspired by that.
Yes.
Right.
Why were you confused by that?
Well, because some were festive and some I felt were winter, but yet I don't know whether they got overlooked because it wasn't festive enough.
It comes down to being a bloke again. Sorry, but all of those dresses for me would be party dresses that you'd wear to a party of some sort.
Yeah.
Because I don't wear a heavy dress to a night out that I'm going out with friends for a Christmas party.
So
I've worn sleeveless dresses to winter.
Because I thought Damien's was a great party dress, but some people said no, it was perhaps too.
For me, it looked like an.
I'm going to sit back here and watch this one.
Because for me, like Damien's was an immaculate sew. Like that is the best I have seen him sew. For me, and I was talking to my neighbour, she also watches it. The pair of us were like, Didn't really feel like a party dress. Looked like a dress you would wear to the office every other day.
So they should have perhaps pulled the zips down first and not had them done.
Zip or not, I wouldn't have. That's that sort of dress I wouldn't wear as a party dress.
Okay.
Because it's so long and because it's so very fitted and very formal. It looked like a formal dress that you wear as office wear.
Okay, so let's go back to the brief then.
The trouble you have
Festive winter.
No. The trouble
hang on, let Tim get in.
is that you had that word bandied around about inspired, and Damien quite rightly said that it was for the office party at Christmas. And why wouldn't it be? And he had, a very smart woolen dress with that flash of pink underneath where you could lower the zip if you wanted to at the end of the day. And this is the problem with inspired by.
Yeah. Well, this is it. We had this conversation when it came to the summer dresses, when it came to every other dress. It was like, for me, I would wear pretty much all of those dresses, but I wouldn't necessarily have worn Damien's to a party. I would have worn that as work dress. But again, everybody's style is a bit different.
Yeah, and everyone sees a party in their own way, don't they? What type of party?
And when it comes to Christmas parties and winter season, like some of the party dresses, they're strapless, they're
this one had a zip right down the front. I tell you, once the party got going,
you want to sneeze.
That was down.
I had a drink and oh my God.
But all through that stage, he was breezing through that. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. He had that practice. I almost cursed there.
I think that shows, which was different from last year, where they filmed it as a block, with them all living in the same house and not really getting much time to practice. Whereas this was filmed, I think it was filmed in the September, October, wasn't it? Where it was, we were all released out into the wild for a short period of time. And it meant that I think that they've been able to go home, find the material they want, practice what they want. I think there was a bit more. And that's showing with people like Damien, who's obviously, I would have thought, made that dress 1 or 2 times before to make sure he got it spot on.
Yeah, it was immaculate. I was so impressed with his sewing.
It was wonderful to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, and to the confidence in it. And when he zipped that up, or whenever she did it up at the end, I was like, wow, that's actually a stunning dress.
She felt good in it as well, the model, didn't she?
She looked fabulous in it.
Okay, so that's Damien. Andrew and his purple velvet.
Oh.
Well...
It was a bit of a disaster.
I mean, well, I would say the problem. There was more than one. But the problem with working with velvet is you've got a nap to the velvet. You have to make sure that it's worse than having directional fabric, because you've got to make sure that it all goes in the same direction, because it'll brush up if you've got 2 panels and you've sewn them upside down, one upside down. One will, brush up lovely this way, and the other won't, and so you've got all of that on top of the fact that if you start to move it too much, it in effect bruises the material as well.
It's hard fabric.
It's a hard fabric to work with.
Slippy to work with as well. It's not even if it's nice, it's slippy and it doesn't sit right. And as we've seen, he had issues with it. You know what I mean? So it was all bubbly, and it was.
But I must admit,
match it back with the zip, and it didn't fit particularly well, and the bow fell off. There was a lot of issues with it. Just saying.
Because I was 10 minutes behind you lot, I was kind of watching this, and I hadn't got up, I hadn't gone to the toilet, I hadn't gone and got a drink or anything. I was watching it, and I was like, are they not doing this with models? It seemed that the models didn't come in until the very end, and so part of me, when they started, don't get me wrong, Andrew's darts on the back, they weren't level and stuff like that, but part of me was like, hang on, they've literally had their model for what seems like 5 minutes.
No, they had the model at the start. The models were there at the start, because I've seen them all placing their patterns on them and checking out their pattern kit and that stuff.
But the thing is they then disappeared for what seemed like ages, and then there was kind of that point of like, well, have they gone past the point of no return where he's had to put this dart in and then realized, and because it was velvet, you couldn't do anything with it?
The models did come back in, and they had another fitting because Raf realized he had problems with his. And
but I just felt that, to me, it was like they didn't have the models for a very long time.
I think because you remember Patrick and Esme did have a conversation where they were talking about Fari. They were like, Fari has not used her model once.
which is when I got confused and went, is this week it going to be based on mannequins? Because I must have missed the very first bit where they came in, but it was just like, it felt that they didn't get as much time to work and make sure it was fitted and did all those little things like darts and
I think they did. It's just the editing again. From what I can gather, I think they did again, and it was just...
I couldn't quite work out why Fari didn't have a model fitting. Why she chose not to.
She was so far behind. She was miles behind. So, like, she just didn't have the time, because whenever she was talking about it throughout, she was like, I just don't have the time. I have to get it done, and I have to hope that the stretch, because she had stretch.
She was velvet.
And she was just praying that the stretch held and made sure it was a good fit.
But, I mean, before I attack that dress, just going back to Andrew's and his bow gate, I did understand what Ismay was saying. I thought when we saw the little drawing of the pattern, I thought that perhaps the sleeve was going to come down the arm and maybe split off into two that would be tied into a bow. And like she said, that it was more integral to the dress. And I think if he'd have done something like that, I'm not saying they would have forgiven him for because that was quite a major thing with the darts, but I think if it had been like a draped sleeve that you could undo and it hung down here and then you tied it up into a bow, I think they might have given him a bit more credence for that. Just to make a bow and slap it on and then be surprised when it comes off. He looked genuinely surprised. And I was like, mate, I could have told you that was coming off.
Yeah. And the bows as well, they were not great though, because they were supposed to be that organza type material, but they were too lightweight.
Yeah.
So
and then he put too much velvet on, so they became too heavy.
Yeah, but it was like, even if he made them smaller and folded that material to give a wee bit of weight to the edges, that would have been better than what he did with the velvet.
And I think that was a COVID case, there wasn't it? He bought fabric online, and when it arrived, it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Why not buy some more though? They clearly can't.
I suppose it depends how much time. You know, if it gets delivered on the Friday and you're filming on the Saturday, you haven't got time, have you?
There must be some time, because remember Rebecca had to fuse hers with interface so that it would, because her material was too lightweight. So there must be a wee bit of time, but as you say, maybe not quite enough.
Well, but it just depends when it gets delivered, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Up to this point, though, with Andrew, I had no inkling that there was any danger zone there with him. And then suddenly the bow gate, did you see all the shots? The editing went, the music went, and I think I texted you and went, that's it.
Yeah.
We've got
Well, we kind of get an inkling when he was talking about his darts, and you see when they came around doing the rounds, he was a wee bit, you could see he was struggling a bit.
Yeah.
He was not having a good day. But when you're working with something like velvet, you need a couple of days to work with that kind of stuff, so you don't lose your mind.
It's interesting that both of them, him and Fari, chose velvet and purple. What is it with purple velvet?
I think with purple velvet, you've got, you know, that Christmassy thing, and like they said, a regal thing. I think, you know, for winter, purple's quite a nice,
vibrant kind of color, brightens things up a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like Fari's, I think her material might have been lighter weight though, because it was stretch velvet. It wasn't as heavy.
He had a cotton-based velvet, so his was heavier, and she had the lighter weight version because she had more shift with hers and more movement.
Well, we've gone into Fari, so we'll carry on talking about Fari's then.
Yeah.
What do you want me to say about the big old hole that was in it? The fact that she was once again chasing her own arse, trying to get it finished.
Yeah, to be fair, I will say she got it finished, apart from that hole that she didn't catch, which can happen. But I actually wrote down, I was like, I'm kind of gobsmacked that it was finished to the level that it was, considering she hadn't fitted it. Yes. That it was all frantically sewn throughout the whole episode.
And okay, it wasn't as bad as Adam's coat, but Adam had similar problems in that he didn't quite get it finished. And there was a bit of a hole here and everything like that. And poor old Adam was packed off and sent home.
But it wasn't. No, come on. It was a good sew apart from that hole at the front. It wasn't. Adam's coat wasn't great. His was much more of a disaster.
I'm not saying that they were that comparable, but you know, when they sent Adam home off the back of everything that happened, you know, you've only got to go back to the beginning, and she didn't finish her shirt.
This is it. And this is what it comes back to. It's interesting. I'd love to know their weighting for each thing, because if she did such a bad job with the first one, but then she came top with the second one with the transformation, and then she still had that hole with her.
Yeah, she didn't win the last challenge. She wouldn't.
No.
She didn't come out and do a Raph who did the most spectacular thing ever again out of the lot and win Garment of the Week. You know, she didn't come and redeem herself in that respect, which is why I was kind of okay. Andrew's had a problem with his darts and his bows fell off, but he finished his first garment and he had a good transformation challenge.
Second and third. He came second and third.
Yeah. I was surprised, but his dress was a bit of a disaster. Like, it wasn't even even with if the bows had stayed on.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great dress.
It's no. I thought that if Fari would have gone or should have gone, but she should have been saved from not going had she had Garment of the Week, but she didn't get Garment of the Week, so should she have gone?
Well, I think this is what I'm getting at, is that there is, you know, if you just look at those two dresses, yes, Andrew's was marginally worse than hers.
Yeah.
Considerably worse, not marginally.
It's this idea of it being cumulative. If we're going to have a piece where we stop and say, oh, what's happened in the first half? Who's in trouble? Who's in the danger zone? Who's that? Then, you know, there has to be some weight given to those things. Like you say, it'd be interesting to know what that weight is. But actually, once again, it seems to be, it doesn't really matter what's happened there, does it?
Yeah, it seems, this is it. I agree. It seems to
Certainly from Andrew's point of view, it must feel like
you know, God love those
second
sewers.
and come third, and
I mean, it wouldn't be such a good program, but I'd rather they came in and had 9 hours to make the most stunning outfit they've ever made than to make them do 3 challenges where they're only going to count the very last one.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So talking again, my neighbor, she made an interesting comment. She said they seem to be rewarding great designers more so than great sewers.
You should get her on here. We've got a room for another box.
I'll have a word, see if she'll pop
up. See if she can pop her head through the window next week.
Let's move on to Rebecca. Rebecca and the teal and the lace, the festive lace over.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, that was lush. It was lovely. It's definitely something I've actually got a dress quite similar to that myself.
I mean, that just fitted the brief, didn't it? That was a festive winter party dress, isn't it?
Yeah, it was lovely. And it was.
But again, and I'm not. This is nothing to do with the dress because it was stunning. I loved it. But with the judges, when they were like, "Oh, you know, who's done well this week? Who's not done so well?" and they said, "Oh, you know, Raph has saved himself," and then they turned around and said, "Oh," and then it was almost as if they were shocked that one was. Oh, well, this one also was quite well. It's like, well, hang on a minute. She's done nothing wrong all week, and suddenly. Making out that it's a great big thing that she's finally saved by making this dress, and she'd been good all week.
Yeah. Well, now her transformation challenge was dodge.
Well,
well, if she hadn't added the bow, it might have been a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But she's a competent sewer, and she's got some good skills, hasn't she?
Yeah. And that was the thing. I'm not saying that she didn't deserve any of that because I think the dress as well. It was the judges, yet again, who then were almost incredulous that she'd produced this and therefore she was. And it was just like, come on.
Yeah, agree.
Let's move on to Serena's then. The good old 80s power dress.
Who are we talking about?
Serena.
I
wasn't that overwhelmed by her dress.
I saw more fancy dress than party dress.
And I know she got the idea from Killing Eve, and I've forgotten her name. I wasn't that bothered by it, and I don't think it, like, God love her, didn't help that all those bubbles had where the interfacing hadn't been taken and stuff like that. But it wasn't just like, there was some good details and very good sewing and like very competent. Just wasn't to my particular taste.
No, I suppose the design was so powerful there that it was one of those you're either going to love or perhaps not. Yeah. But I mean, she was brave. Was she brave to choose satin to sew a dress out of?
Yeah.
I think so, under timed conditions. Yes. Yeah. But it has that shimmer, which is what a party Christmas winter dresses about, and I think that's where you would have looked at that and gone, oh yeah, I'm going to have to use this material because I want. If she'd have done that in a flat cotton or a wool or something, it just would have looked horrific. Its redeeming feature was it had that shimmer to it.
Yeah, it was very dramatic. Like it was an entrance making, wow kind of dress. It is going to be a Marmite kind of dress.
Did you think it fitted?
I think so.
I think it was all right, but again, this is where I struggled with this whole idea. I know it's COVID, but I just didn't feel that there was a lot of showing actual fitting going on. And then, I mean, even Raf, that's again where I thought, oh, hang on, what's happened to the models? Because he's clearly placed the stuff on at the beginning and then seemed to have a long period of time where he put it together. And then when the poor woman came out, it was a little bit too tight and he had to do a bit of jiggery pokery with it. And it was just like, I feel that if the models had been there a little bit more, and I know it might have been edited out, all right, Anya, I know you hate everything that I say, but, I just feel that...
Hate me, Ting. Stop sending your fan base on me.
I actually sat there and thought, we're not having models this week. That's how missing I noticed they were.
It's interesting considering last year as well, like the amount, like the models were just there the entire time.
Yeah.
But they're obviously...
But then I think they were all in a bubble then, weren't they? Where these ones have got their masks on, so...
It'll be interesting to see what the viewers say if they picked up on that this round, model-wise, because they, that's probably why Fari then didn't do any fitting at all. Maybe that...
No, Fari was just running behind, so let's not...
Yeah, she was... Again. And that's what's frustrating about the whole thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then it goes into the end, doesn't it? And I think I was drinking a cup of tea when they then said that Andrew was going to go. I literally
haven't talked about Raf's dress at all. Come on.
No, come on. And it won garment of the week.
My God, his dress. Now, we were talking about his dress. Now, talk about a dramatic dress. I couldn't look at that dress for too long now because you'd be blinded with the gold. But it was a stunning dress. Oh my God, I'd like it in a different color myself, but that was a stunning make. That was stunning.
Yes.
That's all. But we talked about the fit.
We agree on that one.
He had to make adjustments with his fit as well at the last minute, and considering he did all that and he pulled it off.
Oh, do you know what? It was one of those holding your breath moments because you could see her going, I don't know if it's going to fit, and he was going, it's going to fit, and I was waiting for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I thought it's so close to the end. If he rips up that seam, there is no way he's going to fix it. Yeah. And then I worried he was going to go home.
It was good TV at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was hilarious seeing Patrick coming round and be like, did it bust? Are you okay?
I don't think there's anything else to say. I mean, I thought it was it looked a bit gapey at the top on the model, but
I think that was the design though. I think, because it was gapey on the sleeves, it had a bit of, not a full puffball, but it was structured that way, I think. But then equally it was fitted down here. So it seemed to be all in the right places as far as I was concerned.
That is not a dress you go out and eat dinner in. That is a standing up drinking fizz.
Cocktail dress.
Yeah, exactly. There's no room for anything else. But again, we talked about before his pleats. So he did it with inspired by Frida. The week where it's inspired by Frida. He had that pleat. Yeah, so he had that repeating pleat again. So he had it in the sleeves, he had it in the bust area as well.
It's skilled. But I still like Damien, so that's probably why I glossed over it.
To be fair, like I said, I thought it was Damien's week. Raf's dress was good, but I thought that they were finally going to give Damien a break, really. And I think they did as well, didn't they? Because when they announced Raf, he was kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, Damien, and everyone. Yeah. I think everyone had probably thought that Damien had done a really good job and pulled it out of the bag. So I did feel for him at that point because I thought, you know what? Raf has won in the past and it was a good dress, but so was Damien's.
Esme absolutely loved it. When she was talking about Damien, she was just she was lit up, wasn't she?
Yeah.
But I think they were just so impressed that he had managed to finally do something that good.
But don't forget, he did it reasonably well.
Huh?
He's done well in those, the fitting challenges because I think they're the ones he's able to practice at home. In those first couple of weeks, he was struggling with the pattern in the first challenge, but where he's been able to practice, he's done some damn good sewing.
Yeah.
But as teachers, we manipulate.
You're not a teacher anymore.
When you award your children for good work, if someone has been good for like 4 weeks and someone else is coming up and is showing some good work, you do sometimes manipulate it. So, well, I'll give it to him this week. That is very good, but I'll give it to him.
I don't know, because this week is the week before half term, and our year 11s and year 13s are leaving. And one of my year 13s turned around and said to me in our final lesson, when we were all, saying goodbye to each other after 4 years of GCSEs and A-levels, and they turned around and they said to me, "Do you know, sir, what I really like about you is your brutal honesty." So I don't think I probably am.
Okay. Well, I would have done it for 1 week, knowing that poor old Jimmy's probably never going to get it again. So give it to him. Is there not an element of that from Esme and Patrick for once? Well,
they're not children, are they?
No,
whereas with children, you try to build up their confidence, aren't you? So you do.
To be fair, they were really positive to Damien. They said how good it was, and they did reinforce that, and they said it was very close. For me, I still preferred Raf's dress. I am glad
it was a brilliant dress. And he'd done it with that brocade as well. I mean, that's difficult to work with.
Yeah, and the fact that he did that beautiful bow where it all caught in this, I think there was maybe slightly more involved, possibly.
Oh, I would have thought.
Raf's.
Yeah.
But then, look at the pattern matching,
Well, I think that they're more involved with Raf's in terms of the pleating and everything. But like you say, Damien not only had to pattern match it, but it was one of those things, and I'm not taking it away from him, but it was a simple sew. You could see every seam, and if they weren't spot on, you would notice that. And I think that's why we were so impressed, because he had that big chunky zip. He didn't do a hidden zip. You could see that stitching. If that had all been wrong, we would have criticised it. You could see the pattern match down the side. We would have been able to criticise that, and none of it was. And I think that's where you did just think, oh, come on, he perhaps deserved it. Raf has had it a couple of times, and while it was a brilliant dress, Damien did that thing where we've always said, if you're going to make something simple, make sure it's perfect, and he did.
Yeah. Let's just hope he does it again, because I hope he does, because I'm actually starting to warm to Damien.
He's grown on me, Damien. In that first couple of episodes, I was so angry with him not following the pattern, but actually he's grown on me, and I'm getting a bit defensive of him and Raf now.
Good. Well, I've liked it from the start.
Shut up.
Get out, Stuart.
I think it's on the video here as evidence.
Yeah, well, I've liked Raf from the start, so that doesn't mean anything.
Okay, so how did you feel then when Andrew got booted out and he was sent home?
I did feel for him.
Yeah, I was in two minds. I was, the one side of me was annoyed that, his first two things were completely dismissed. But also his dress was a bit of a disaster, like he had a bad day.
I think my unrepeatable text probably would sum up how I felt.
Let's just say there were slippers involved.
that came at 9:10.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I've calmed down now after a day, so I can understand why he was. In that position.
It's not completely unfounded, but I'm still furious that somebody is still in the show when a garment was unfinished as that shirt was.
At this level.
We're into the quarterfinal now. There's no way they can allow that to continue.
And like we said, had a good couple of weeks, the last 2 weeks. But, before that, everything was always unfinished. This is not an unusual thing for her to do.
No, and I think it would be unfair if they continue to allow that to progress, because you can't get into the semi-finals with unfinished garments. I don't think that should be allowed.
You shouldn't get to the finals either. I don't want to watch a final where I've got two people knocking out stuff in a time frame and her going, I didn't quite get it finished.
Yeah.
What, and then getting by just because they made it a great made to measure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the final, you shouldn't be counted if you do not finish your garments. And
yes, you'd be furious even in the semi-finals if someone got through and they did.
Well, that's what we're saying.
I know Andrew's dress was not great. I know Andrew's dress wasn't not great, Anya, but I just feel that it's week 7. It's more than halfway through. Anyone who is not finishing, I don't care which garment it is, if you're not finishing a garment on the second half of the series, that should be enough for you to say you're not up to standard.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah,
I mean, it's probably because I'm more of a quilter, and of course the old adage is better finished than perfect, because you never want that those things in the cupboard never being done. But it is that thing.
It would be like you to have projects unfinished. Thing. You don't have a cupboard of doom at all.
Not anymore now. I don't.
Well, let us know in the comments what you think about that discussion that we've just had with regard to not finishing a garment in a round. That would be interesting to see what you all think.
Oh, and then we've got movie week to look forward to.
I'm so glad that's happening. I thought this was happening this week. I got so excited, and then it was winter. I was kind of like, oh.
I'm slightly worried that the fan base want me in a watermelon dress next week, but it ain't going to happen.
It's officially called Movie and Musicals, so yes. And speaking of which, there's going to be 4 of us next week. John Scott is going to be joining us because he is from the theatre world. He was trained in theatre. He was a theatre costumer. So I thought, well, that'd be good for Music and Movies Week. And he's going to give us his opinion. He has a show like us on Facebook where he talks live every week on a Sewing Bee review. So it's going to be great to have him on giving us his opinions and seeing how that chat develops. So excited.
Indeed. Awesome.
But until then,
nothing more to say then.
Talked out.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Look forward to it for the quarterfinals, everyone.
Oh, is it not movies though? Should it not be so long? Farewell.
And then we all just exit stage left or exit stage right. I'm not sure.
Cheery bye all.
Bye.